Hello, everybody, and welcome to Toadstool Tarot. And we're doing a Cards Ask the Questions segment today, which was inspired by Regina of Regina's Tarot and Wirecraft channel. And she calls them tarot interviews, but it's pretty much the same thing. And I want to thank her for coming up with it. And I have a special guest today. It's Tom from Tarot Your Way, and welcome. Didn't get to know Tom. And the first thing I want to do, well, I should actually check my chat here and welcome everybody here that's here. I see Kindness and Light, Jackie, Red Wing, Woolly Hermit, and Andrea 54 Hector. Welcome.
Hi, Mel.
I'm glad to meet you finally. And before I get into the regular questions, there's a couple I wanted to ask you. I think I saw that you've had your channel since November, so you're still fairly new. And I wondered how that came about, and also how you came up with the name for your channel.
Well, I tried to start a channel on a different YouTube account, and I failed miserably. So I started all over, and I really didn't get any courage until I just decided, well, on my birthday, I'm going to start my channel. And so I finally bit the bullet, and Mel and Nancy, Woolly Hermit, and Nancy Akron's Intuition, they had me on, and they introduced me to everybody for the next day to go live. And I posted my first card of the day video.
And I see
Tarot Your Way. I don't know. It was just easy for me, I guess.
I see Maruda and Nancy just came in, so say hello to them. Also I wanted to ask you, did you have direction in mind by starting your channel, like what you wanted to do or what format you were going to work with, or what was the reasoning behind having a channel for you?
Well, I just needed some structure in my life. I've got a lot of time, and I don't keep any schedule at all. I'll just stay up until I exhaust myself. So, sorry about that.
Guys, we're having a little technical trouble today on Tom's end. He's using his computer and his phone, but he's not able to see me on the computer. And so we may have a little bit of stuff to negotiate here, but we'll try our best.
It's a little bit of a delay on my end
And I think he's getting phone calls on the phone.
Yeah, I'm getting phone calls. I canceled my Meals on Wheels, and now they're at the door banging.
Oh, you need to go check on that, because
yeah, they can just go away.
Okay.
I did what I was supposed to do.
Okay. So I was asking about your channel, what you wanted to do with your.
Hold on. Okay, I sent a message, so maybe that'll stop them. I've lost my sound. Are you
Oh, I'm here.
okay?
I'm just waiting. I was just
Let's
checking.
not make these people wait. Hi, Nancy and Mel and Lisa from Kindness and Light.
Yeah, I was looking there for comments, but they're mostly just saying hello to one another. Is it easier for you to turn the phone off, or is that not the phone?
Well, that's how I'm seeing you.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Um, I mean, oh, that's how you're seeing the chat too, I guess.
Well, I can see that through the phone.
Well, you don't necessarily need to see me for us to do this if you don't want to, because I'll tell you the card I'm holding up when it's my
Sure.
turn.
Yeah, I know the visuals.
Yeah. So yeah, so everybody's Kindness and Light says watch on your TV, hon. I don't know what your setup is. Um Woolly Hermit, that happens to me now and then too. They don't seem to sync sometimes. Put phone on airplane mode, Tom.
There you go. That's what I need to do. I can do that.
Is that going to work though?
Yeah,
Nancy?
because I'm coming through the computer with my audio and visual. So
Yeah, but if you put it on
calling me.
if you put it on airplane mode, then my picture won't YouTube won't come through there, right? I don't think it will, but that's all right. All right, we're just trying to sort it out. Have patience with us.
Oh yeah.
We can still hear each other, which is the main thing. So, um, yeah. So I was asking about Tarot Your Way, and if you had particular plans in mind when you started, like what you wanted to try to do with your channel, if you had a direction with it, or something.
Yeah, I wanted to teach, but so many other people do it so much better than I do.
Uh-huh.
And so I guess that's sort of what I'm doing with the daily card draws and giving the meanings of the cards, through the Stoller book. And eventually I'll get to maybe pick a cards or do readings with the cards that we got in the last week or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I find that watching teaching videos, everybody does it a little bit different. So there's not just one way, and I always learn something no matter who's teaching and what their methods are. I generally learn more or learn better by example than by being taught. Like if somebody's doing a reading or they explain what they're seeing or how they're seeing what they're seeing, then I can sort of like follow what they're doing better than somebody telling me what a card meaning is. But everybody does their own sort of thing and has their own best method of learning or teaching. I was going to say, just to sort of carry through, although most of the people that watch me will know already, that I started my channel. Gosh, it's been a while now. I have a 4th anniversary coming up in a month or two. I started because I wanted to get to look at some tarot decks, and I saw other people doing walkthrough or flip through channels, and that sort of intrigued me. And then I started to see that people doing that were doing commentary as well, and got into the personalities in the community. And so I thought, gee, the decks I'm looking for or I'm collecting are a little bit more eclectic, or they're not such run of the mill, mass market kind of things. And so I thought I'd like to share those. So I started doing walkthroughs. I did find, though, after about the first year, I was accumulating so many decks that was getting out of control. And I felt like I needed to have new decks all the time to have, new content for my channel. And my deck collecting was being driven more by need to have something to show on my channel than decks I particularly wanted. So I've shifted to doing other things like, interviews, or like this, a dialogue, or pick a topic and then we discuss a topic.
Yeah,
But
each channel has a little different personality as well, and that's what I like. You can have variety, and if you're having a peppy, upbeat day, you can go to somebody who bounces off the walls, or if you're feeling a little more sedate and calm, you can find somebody else. And like the Stoller Tarot is a Rider-Waite Smith sort of based deck.
mm-hmm.
And so I use that just because anybody that comes across my channel, and they can just go out to any big box store and get the old plaidback Rider-Waite Smith, and be sort of familiar with what they've seen.
I also love what you do when you do a side by side. So you have something new they might not have seen, the Stoller Tarot, but then in your reading you have it next to the same card example from the RWS, so that people can see the similarities and the differences, and in case they can't quite make out one, they are probably already familiar with the other. And I just found it really helpful, actually, to see them together and fun. The Stoller has a kind of a sense of humor, I think, that the RWS doesn't really have, and that's interesting too. I don't know if you have many decks in your collection or just a couple, and whether you tend to be drawn towards more comical kind of imagery, because the Stoller seems sort of lighter and more amusing.
Well, the reason I'm using the Stoller is because it is the right size for an automatic card shuffler. I have some nerve damage in my hands, and I can't do a bridge shuffle or even overhand shuffle. So that's why I'm using the Stoller Tarot. But I've never been a really serious person. I've always gone to comedy. I think I'm a quick wit at times, but sometimes wit is not appreciated when the serious situations come up.
Mm-hmm.
So, and a little inappropriate. Stoller is a good choice for me.
Well, I wouldn't even have known about the nerve damage if you hadn't told me, because I've been watching your daily draws, and you use a different method. You fan them across the surface and pull one out, which I don't see many people doing, but it's, a very legitimate way of shuffling and drawing cards. And it's kind of refreshing, because I don't see people doing that. So, but now I know why you do it. I thought it was just sort of a stylistic choice, but that's interesting. I was going to say, when it came time to do my channel, I asked for advice from another tarot tuber, and they said, don't do it under your own name or under your real name. And so they said, create an email account under some other name, because I think you have to have an email to create a YouTube account. And I didn't want to do it under my name, or they advised me not to, because I guess, it can get really personal at times, and sometimes you don't want people knowing your private business, or they don't want to be able to identify you outside of TarotTube. So I went on there to try and create another email, and I went on Yahoo, and every time I put some suggestion in, something that sounded like it might be good for a channel, the account was taken already. And then I just started putting random stuff in, and I had on a table near me a book that I self-published of fairy tales I had written under creative writing courses. And the picture on the cover, or the back cover, was an image I'd grabbed from an old postcard that showed two little elves, and one was sitting on a toadstool and the one was lying underneath it. And so I just put in Toadstool Tarot, seeing, well, will this take? And it took. And I thought, oh, damn, now I'm stuck with that. But after a while, I just sort of got used to it. I thought, oh, that's not such a bad name for a channel. It's okay. It's different. So that's kind of how my channel got its name. So let's give this a try. Oh, I wanted also to welcome in Jane the Seeker and Maruda, if I didn't say hello already.
Hi, Jane. Hi, Maruda. Maruda's always in the chats, helping be moderators for people. So she does a lot of work behind the scenes as well.
Yeah. I just want to chat. Oh, I have a few moderators, Jackie and Jane. I'm not real prolific about choosing moderators, but two is good. I may not need them. I've been very lucky, knock on wood, to not get any trolls, but now that I've said that, I may have jinxed it. So maybe let's shuffle our cards or pull a card and see if we can start the questioning. See what the cards ask.
Okay, and the questions are directed at each other for the interview's sake, right?
Yeah, but we also answer them too. So if you ask me a question, be prepared to answer the same question.
Thanks for the warning.
I guess I'll go first, although I'm not sure about this one. I pulled the moon card. The moon card has always kind of confused me in the RWS. And I kind of had to make sense of it for me, it's sort of like there's a path that we follow. And on either side of the path, there are two dogs, but one's a wild dog and the other's a domestic dog. So for me, our path ahead is divided by instinct, which would be the wild dog, or reasoning thought, which would be the domestic dog. Well, I always have trouble figuring out what the lobster or crayfish or whatever is all about. I don't usually relate to that because it feels to me like the balance between the other two sort of touches on that idea of evolution. Maybe the crayfish is crawling out of the water in this notion of evolution, or I don't know. Never really knew what that was about, but I go with the wild dog, tame dog kind of thing. So what am I going to ask about this card? All right, I'm just going to ask something really silly. Are you more of a day person or a night person?
I am definitely a night owl. When I was younger and working my way through college, I worked the graveyard shift at a nursing home. And between rounds and doing tasks that we needed to do, I could get a little studying done. And then I had about a 2-hour period before I had to drive to the local community college and take my college classes. So I definitely never grew out of that night owl stage.
What can I ask? What you were studying in college, or did you have a major?
Okay. Well, being a Pisces, I am like so totally emotional that I had no logical thinking. So I took up computer programming to work on logic skills and skills that I didn't see that I had.
Okay. For me, the moon, the night. I guess these days I'm more of a night person, but I after I retired, my sleep patterns got all wacky. So I don't sleep at night and then up during the day, or vice versa. I'm like off and on every 3 or 4 hours or so, all through the 24 hours. So I often crash out about 8 in the evening to midnight, and then I'll be awake most of the night, or at least till 4 or something, and then I'll go back again to sleep for 3 or 4 hours. But I do find in the night I get more accomplished. It's quieter, and it just feels like there's more time to focus on anything you want to do, writing or computer work or tarot study or whatever. I haven't yet done any live YouTube things at night, but I would like to. It's a whole different group of people in the audience at night than during the day.
Well, yeah, if you're up, just give me a call. If I answer the phone, then 15 minutes warning, then I can get
Yeah.
back to my room and set things up, and we can go live late night, middle of the night, have a
Oh,
witching hour read.
I'll keep that in mind. And do you do readings for people too, or just
Um,
for yourself?
I did readings for a charity for 12 years,
Wow.
and uh, it was 15-minute goes and the Celtic cross spread, and they charged $7 a reading, and so in the time that I had, I could do 28 readings from 10 in the morning to 5 in the afternoon. And I'm pretty much introverted, so I'm not used to talking for 7 hours at a time.
Yeah.
So that was interesting.
How did you find working with the Celtic cross? Was it a preferred method, or just what people were
Well,
using?
it was just what I started out with. I totally book learned. Um, my favorite book is a book based on Jungian archetypes with Sally Nichol, Jung and the Tarot.
Oh,
Because I'm so deeply scarred emotionally that I'm always trying to work on myself, and doing that exploration of the archetypes, really helps with the 22 trump cards, but then it leaves a vast gap of knowledge with all the minor arcana.
yeah. I tend to really like majors only decks. I've created a couple, but and people sort of complain about missing the other cards, but I find I can get pretty much anything I want out of the 22, although the bulk of my collection are 78 card decks. Um, but yeah, I sort of like the poignancy or focus of the top 22. Yeah, I was going to say there. Um, what? Maybe you pull a card and see if you've got a question in there for me.
Okay, um, this is the Tower card off the Stolar Tarot,
Ooh,
and so we got King Kong and the planes and the lightning, and we all know about towers and calamities. So my question is, um, how did you set yourself up for a tower moment in your life, and knew that eventually it would come tumbling down?
I'm not sure I relate to the card in the same way, but um, for the longest time, I was really afraid of tower cards. For me, that was like the scariest card in the deck. And then I got the Everyday Witch Tarot, and in that one, the witch is standing away from the tower, sort of like facing her wand at the tower. So she brought the tower down with her powers. Because I always used to see the tower as a victim card, that like whatever happens, happens unexpectedly and wildly. And, I'm the victim. So that's a horrible place to be. And after I saw that other deck, I got to review it in a different way, not so much as the destruction card or the calamity card, but more as a time to shake things up card. And that turned it around into a sort of a positive thing for me when if you come to a point in your life where you feel you really need a change, maybe it's a notion to take charge of the moment and change things, shake things up a little bit, make them better, different for yourself. But we all have tower moments where we don't have the control and things happen to us. And I guess for me, the best way to plow on is I often will pull out a tarot deck and consult it and see, oh, where did I go wrong? Or how do I proceed? Where do I go next? Where do I go from here? So I can't think of a specific instance. I've been pretty lucky, knock on wood, lately, and not had so many tower moments. But it seems like a system that I'm rolling with or working with. It seems to be working for me. Not sure if that answers your question or not.
You're you're a lot more logical than me because I've set my tower up to fall many times. I've built my towers on shaky grounds and the foundations weren't there, so I've fallen many times. Relationships, taking on too many projects, and then not just dropping one, but dropping them all and walking away, being that Eight of Cups card. Just calamity wise, I don't know that the tower is the biggest negative card in the deck. I think every card has its lesson, and the tower lesson is to take care from the beginning to not have those tower moments if at all possible. And if a tower moment does come along, make sure that we've set up plan B along the way.
Yeah. That's a good idea if you can manage it, if you have a backup plan or something. I wanted to say, Woolly Hermit says, I forget which deck it was that showed that the trick of the tower card is to not be in the tower. It shows the tower can mean freedom too. And
that's a great way of looking at that.
Yeah. And Kindness and Light says, I like the Oracle cards better than tarot. I'm wondering whether you have any Oracle decks or how you feel about Oracle versus or in addition to tarot cards.
Well, I just read the cards. So if I get an Oracle deck that has the prompts on them, or I would read the accompanying books. I'm sure Oracle decks would work as well for me as with anyone else. And I do love some of the messages that I've heard from Oracle card decks.
I haven't done a video yet on it, but I've been thinking about it. I know people are going to be upset with me for bitching about Oracle decks. I'm not a real big fan of Oracle decks, and I think the reason why is my misunderstanding of what an Oracle deck is, because um, there are decks out there that I call affirmation decks that generally are considered Oracle decks that basically give you a warm hug and a pat on the back. And sometimes we need that. Most of the times I don't need that. I want something more than just everything's going to be okay, you know? And then the other thing is the Oracle of Delphi, or, you know, whatever Oracle has been in history. It speaks to me of this notion of being able to divine answers through many different means, but they're not usually through someone spelling it out for you. I do have a couple of Oracle decks that just have images and no words and no guidebook. And that's my preference, because I feel like, you know, I should be able to look at it and look at the image and divine some message from that. But I almost feel like, and I see a lot of people with Oracle decks, it's not just a key word, it's a whole sentence or a phrase or a wise saying, or people will then refer to the book quickly and read the book. And for me, it's sort of like, well, if I'm going to lean that heavily on the book, maybe I don't need the cards anymore. Maybe I just need a self-help book, you know? So it's kind of my own dilemma with Oracle decks. And I used to like the idea of them because they have the freedom that tarot doesn't have because of the tarot system. But yeah, I don't know. I probably need to talk to other people about what they feel about Oracle decks, or what they look for in them, what they use them for, what they mean to them. I find that for me, there's sort of strength and structure in the tarot that I don't get in Oracle decks. But then again, Oracle decks aren't about that. They have that freedom to them. So I don't know. I don't have that many Oracle decks.
Well, that's, you know, we're human. We have free will, and we have our preferences sort of built into us, and our prejudice. And when I read tarot, it's always for someone else. I can't read tarot for myself because I've never had the answers for myself, and I've never trusted myself for the right answers. So that's just one of my shortcomings. But I'm getting a lot better.
I think that's really interesting. I've heard about people that can't read for themselves, and I have trouble understanding that. But it may all be about personalities. Like, I feel so subjective or objective about myself when I look at the cards. I feel like I'm not ruling anything out, and I'm like I'm reading for someone else. Like, I step outside myself and I say, okay, I'm reading for Robin. What do these cards tell me? And usually I'm more open with my questions. I don't have a lot of, I'm old and retired and I don't do so much, but so I don't have a lot of problems or issues to ask questions about. But I just generally say, what do I need to know today? Or what can you tell me right now that would be of service to me? And then I'll look at the reading, and it's very vague, but usually I know right away when I see the images in the cards what it's talking about or what situation. Sometimes I'm not real focused when I shuffle, and then I'll go and look at the cards, and I have the TV going too, and it's like, oh, it's talking about this TV show I'm watching. So it's like, it's really funny how reflective it is on my life. It depends a lot on the intention you put into your question and how specific your question is. And I think that goes to do with shuffling too. The more that I used to worry I wasn't shuffling enough, or how do I know when to stop shuffling? When's the right time that the cards are just where they're supposed to be? And one of the wisest things I ever heard was on Kelly of Truth and Stories channel. I put that question to her, like, when's the right time to stop shuffling? How do you know it's the right time? And her answer was, every single card in the deck has something to say about the topic you're discussing. And I thought, yeah, that's really true. They're all from sort of different viewpoints, but there's almost no wrong card for your question. I don't know, whether it's, cosmic intention of like sending you in the right direction, or whether it's just your own sensibility when you read the card, how you read the card, how it applies to what's going on in the moment or what you're asking. Sorry, I'm gabbing too much.
No problem. I enjoy hearing how other people think and process and interact with the cards.
I'm going to try another card here now. Oh, I got the two of Pentacles. Well, at the moment, I don't. It's funny. At the moment, I'm drawn on these stormy seas in the background, and the boats going up and down. And this character in here is trying to balance things, and while he's standing on one foot, which is sort of balanced too. I guess my question would be, how are you at balancing things in your life? You find that easy or difficult? This may also take into account the notion of multitasking. So I don't know if that question is clear enough for you to respond to or not.
Okay. Yeah. Multitasking. When I was had my computer career, I went into the customer service end of it in the teaching and the like every month there would be a new system going online, so you would have to interact with everybody in the company who was dealing with computer in any means at all. So usually you set things up, you do a test conversion and let them play with it. Well, whether you come back 1 month or 2 months later, nobody's ever played with it enough or at all. Then when you go live, everybody's in panic mode. And there's 25 things going wrong all at once to them. To you, you've been through the same thing, 12 times every year. And so I lived by lists and then constantly reprioritizing. So if somebody came to me and needed something, I would add it to my list and I'd shuffle around the priorities and say, okay, it'll be approximately 20 minutes and I'll come see you. And that, deal with the fires one by one. After a while, you sort of get like a vinyl record that's been out in the sun and has got a warp in it, and so the needle goes up and down, and you get a fast spot and a slow spot, and you feel a little stretched in one direction, and things that might need attention in others. Now that I'm forcibly retired and have been retired since July of 19, there is no problem with balancing things and having to multitask. It's it's more of a challenge to keep myself mentally occupied nowadays, and with quality things. There's time wasting, and then there's enrichment.
Yeah, I get that. When I was working, my ideal situation would be to have an inbox and an outbox on my desk that I could routinely do one task. I could do lots of tasks, but one at a time. That I could do it, focus on it, finish it. Yay, accomplishment. Next task, like an assembly line. That's the way I worked best. However, that's not the way the organization worked. There was a sort of a political hierarchy there, and the boss was a micromanager, and she would come over to me and say, "Oh, I have something I'd like you to do, but no rush." And then she would give me the thing and then walk away. And I'm thinking, "Oh, no rush. Okay, I'll get to it, sometime today or in a few hours." 5 minutes later, she'd come back to see how I was doing on it, which doesn't mean no rush to me. I would go, I was working for, various supervisors and heads of different departments, and I would have to, if I was in the middle of something for them or they were calling me to find out what was going on, I'd have to explain, well, boss lady wants me to do something, and I think you know how she is, and I think I'm going to have to pause and give her project priority. And that was a little tricky. They all understood, but I didn't really enjoy having to deal with it that way. And it was something that I couldn't exactly tell her, well, I have this, this, and this to do ahead of you. It just didn't. So that was tricky. But now, like you said, I'm retired, and now it's balance in terms of whatever I want to put focus on, and it's more of a matter of finding things to do than anything. And I found that creating projects or being involved in different groups sets routine back into my week. A couple times a week, I have creative writing groups that I attend. One of them I facilitate, and the other one I'm just a member of. And they just kind of punctuate and separate the rest of the empty days of my week. So, I have something that I'm working on those days, a project, and then the days in between, I can do whatever I want. I can go out for coffee, or I can create a video or something like that. I've been lately enjoying doing VRs when people do these hashtags they put out there, and it makes you sort of stop and focus on some questions to address. But the latest ones I've been getting to, I thought, gee, I don't know if I should be doing these. These are so revealing. I'm really laying myself bare out there to the audience. And there's a current one I'm debating whether to approach or not. There's 22 questions from a psychological point of view. And the person that posed them is a psychologist. So I'm thinking, gee, am I giving too much away about my privacy or my, my vulnerability by putting these questions out there for everybody? So I don't know. I have to see about that. I wanted to welcome, I'm chatting back with the chat, and Kristen Louise just came in. Hello. And Jesri is here. And somebody back here. Oh, here. You said Kindness and Light. I don't know that person by their name. What's
Kindness and Light is Lisa Rhodes.
Okay, Lisa says every reader is different. Sometimes Tom and I can have the same response on a card, and sometimes we are different. I think that happens a lot. I think a lot of us. My philosophy on that, and a lot of people say, oh, there's no wrong way or right way to tarot, which is arguable. But for me, it's communication and kind of like refining language. And for me, as long as there's consistency in the way you approach or read a card, that's what's conveyed to you, and just stick with it. So you might read a card differently from someone else, but if that same message comes through to you every time you see that card, then I wouldn't say that, they're right and you're wrong, or vice versa. I'd say that's the way you approach this language. Hopefully there's a kind of a common connection there, a common denominator, or sort of a Rosetta Stone middle ground, But when I first started learning tarot, I got the RWS on that little white book, frustrated the crap out of me, because the key words weren't all synonyms. Some of them made sense and I could see it in the card, and some of them were completely different, and they weren't reversals. It was the same upright meaning, but two words that seemed at odds with one another. I thought, I don't get this at all, until I finally threw the little white book away. Because then I went back to A.E. White's original book, and there's something in there right near the beginning, I think, where he says that the tarot is all about the pictures, or the symbols in the pictures. And I thought, okay, well, I'm going to just look at those and see what I see. At this stage of my learning, I'm at the beginning, and I don't ever have to interact with anybody else. If I want to just read cards for myself, I need to find a way to use the deck. And maybe as I learn more, I'll find ways to interact with other people and find out whether I'm doing it right or wrong. So boy, did I go off on a ramble there.
Well, 10 minutes later, I might have the same 3 or 4 cards for reading, and 10 minutes later, I may interpret it off on a little different bent, because I'm not the same person I was 10 minutes ago. So it's part of subjectivity and where your mind space is at that moment.
Jackie says, hence Tarot Your Way, which, by the way, if I forgot to mention, that's the name of Thomas's channel, Tarot Your Way. And if I didn't do it already, I should put a link to your channel in the description. I'll do it afterwards. Jane says, cards give me songs and intuitive sight. And Woolly Hermit says that LWB, the Little White Book, was all we had for a long time. Yeah. Now there's so many books out there. Oh, thanks, Jackie. She just put your link to your channel in there. I think.
Thank you, Jackie.
I think it's your turn for a card pull.
Okay.
That's the thing about pulling these cards, that even though we have a question to get us going, we can go off on a side track, and it's more about the conversation than it is about the cards. Oh, I love that picture.
Okay, this is the 4 of Pentacles, which is usually the miser.
Can you hold it to the screen again?
I'll put it back.
Oh, sorry. I didn't see the whole card. Maybe I just saw enough of it. There's someone hovering over some rising balloons.
Yeah. There
That's
I got him. And over a cityscape.
Oh, the other way. There we go. That's a great card.
Yeah. Well, even though they're comical and funny looking, they pack a wallop if you ask serious questions.
Yeah.
So I guess that is the question that I would say with that card is, are you wise with the resources, the material things around you, or are you uh, footloose and fancy free?
I think I'm pretty grounded about things I collect around me, and pretty fussy. I tend to hold on pretty tight. It's funny though, while you were asking the questions and showing the card, Kristen Louisa's comment popped out at me for that card on the screen, and she said, I lost a tarot deck. I had it yesterday and now I can't find it. WTF. And that has happened to me. I bought an out of print used copy of a deck that I loved, and it just disappeared overnight. Now, it probably fell somewhere behind some furniture in a place I can't get at because my place is small and cluttered. But they always say, oh, the fairies made off with it. The fairies took it, and someday it'll show up again. In the meantime, I've gone and replaced it because I like that deck so much. But yeah, I think for me that card is this sort of notion of holding on too tight. And in that particular imagery, if you don't hold on too tight, you're going to fall to your doom, by way of gravity.
You're attached to those balloons to make it a little safer.
But also, if you hold on too tight, you might pop the balloons and you'll be in the same situation as if you're not holding on tight enough. I like that deck, and I actually had considered getting a copy when I saw the imagery. I think what gave me pause is it renamed at least one or more of the suits. And I usually don't like that when they do that in decks. And I thought, oh, I don't want to get used to a new deck where cups or buckets and brooms or wands or are they swords? I've forgotten. So
they're swords.
So yeah, I get it makes sense. Sword, flying brooms through the air or swords, I guess. But yeah, I have to like rethink when I look at those kind of decks. Like, no, what does this stand for? So, but I do like the imagery in it. So yeah, I don't know. I'm Virgo, and I tend to be very fussy and very particular. And even though people would say my room is messy and cluttered, it's sort of organized and it's cluttered, but it's organized in neat little piles everywhere. And I kind of know where everything is, except that one missing deck that disappeared. I don't know what happened to that one. But now I'm forgetting how you phrase the question about being particular with material things, I think.
Are you wise with your material possessions, or are you footloose and fancy free?
Well, I'm kind of both ways. I tend to go by my passions. If I want something, I buy it or I get it, and I hold on to it. But I'm not always wise about the things I acquire. I don't always make the best choices. It's more like I go with my heart or my passion than my reasoning. And it's usually a treasure or something that I will treasure over something I need particularly. But I think I do okay for the most part. I keep things fairly balanced. What about you?
So, I had some hoarder tendencies in my past, and going from a 4-bedroom home to a roommate situation to renting a room from a landlord. you have to cull things down. And then when I became disabled, I get around with a rollator walker, so I need even less things to clutter up spaces. So nothing can be on the floor, and um, think of all the thousands of dollars that were wasted that needed to be rehomed or go to a rubbish bin. So unwise, because at the end of the day, um, he who dies with the most tarot decks still dies,
Mm-hmm.
and as long as you keep the things around that um, serve purpose to you and you enjoy, um, and don't get in the way of your safety as we age, because I guess it's a good thing that we come to our twilight years after we have some knowledge and wisdom, because it's not for the faint of heart. It's not easy for anybody. And I'm not saying I have a rough go of things, because everybody has tough times to get through.
Yeah, I live in a really tiny. I live in a studio apartment in New York City, and it's about 7 8 foot across and about 23 foot long. So when I first moved in, I could lie down on the floor and touch one wall with my toe and the other with my tip of my finger. That's how wide the room was.
Oh, wow.
And I thought I might go stir crazy when I first moved in because it's such a small space. But I spend most of my time at this end. I'm sitting on my bed, and it has high ceilings. And when I look out across the 23-foot space and the high ceilings, I feel it feels roomy and airy to me in here. I have more than enough space. In fact, most of the time I spend in it is from right where I'm sitting on my bed. You know, I'm either sleeping or watching TV or working on my computer on a little pedestal table right in front of my bed. And so it's funny, I've grown to appreciate the little bit of space that I have, but I have come to refer to my apartment after 50 years of living here as the bus, because as you can see behind me, there's stuff stacked up, there's shelves on the other side, and there's basically a narrow walking aisle down the center of my space. So it is in some ways like a bus in that regard, that there's clutter on one side, there's clutter on the other, there's a clear path down the center. But part of me is really looking forward to the idea of when I move to a new place and I'm on a waiting list for a new space, that when I move, I can clear out the clutter and leave stuff behind. I'm tempted to just pack a trunk or a couple of suitcases with all my absolute favorite things and abandon my old apartment and leave the rest of it behind. Because I think over time, we do tend to accumulate too much. And I used to collect a lot of books and movies and music on CDs or DVDs. And now most of that stuff's available on the computer. And I read books on my Kindle app on my phone, which I love because I can read in bed at night with just the light of the phone, and you can't fit much text on a page, so every book is a page turner, you know. And I feel like I'm getting somewhere reading it when the pages go by faster than when I hold a big, heavy book, and you know it impacts my muscles holding it, wielding it, and getting it at the right angle, and maneuvering the pages, and having to read all the words on the pages. So I just kind of adjusted to it. And with tarot decks, I've accumulated quite a few, but I find I go through mostly I focus on anywhere from 1 to 5 decks, and the rest are just storage on the shelves. I rarely revisit them or go back to them. So there's something to be said for the Spartan life that appeals to me, and I would love to kind of get in that position again where I can pare things down and get a fresh start. Well, it's funny. I draw the next card for the next question, and it's the Ten of Wands, which makes me think about what we just talked about, too much clutter or too much in our lives, and sort of dealing with that. I'm not even sure I need to ask that because I feel almost like you already answered it. Let me see what's after that. Oh, this is a good one. Strength. The Strength card. What's your relationship with strength? Because you mentioned that you're disabled, so I should think you might have a very different take on the Strength card or what it means to you, either in yourself or with other people that you interact with.
Well, it certainly has reframed um, a lot of things in life. When the chips are down, there are people that rally around you, and then there are people that suddenly disappear. But as long as you have something to give to those people that have disappeared, they've been hanging on. So you quickly get a reassessment of who's important or who should be important in your life. And I have a great support group of friends, chosen friends. Mel asked where am I living. I'm in Houston, Texas. And I didn't grow up in Houston. I grew up in Iowa. And there's just a brother and a sister-in-law left of the immediate family. And they're up in Iowa enjoying the trout streams and the nature and what calls to them. I'm here in the city life. And the group of friends that I've got, they make sure that everything's taken care of. I've got travel mates if I want to go to the casino or if I want to go on a cruise. You did say about the ship in the background and the balance card.
Mm-hmm.
I love going on cruises, yet I'm very prone to seasickness. So I don't keep my my balance very well off land, but I sure enjoy a cruise. And I'm sorry. Are we talking about the Ten of Wands still, or?
No, I mean you can address that if you want, but my focus was more on the Strength card, and I'm curious as to you can answer about the respond to Ten of Wands, but I'm curious as to how you read the Strength card.
Well, the Strength card now has become something totally different for me because I've had to learn a lot about patience and frustration. And with that Strength card, that person is closing the lion's mouth, not with strength, but with gentle love and kindness and compassion, and maybe a little more mental telepathy. So I've got to take new approaches with things because they're just not the same as it used to be.
Yeah, it's funny. My mind is going so many different places, but I realized I kind of glossed over or skipped over the Ten of Wands. And when I did that, the card I got was Strength. It just occurs to me that the Ten of Wands is kind of a strength card. Here's somebody doing all they can to hold and lift and carry all these wands gathered together. It's kind of its own strength card. And the fact that I drew strength next was kind of like saying, you're not going to skip over that card. We're talking about strength.
Well,
and
in my work career, the Ten of Wands brings something that used to just grate on me. Work smarter, not harder.
mm-hmm.
Well, you got to give me the tools and the backup to help me work smarter, not harder. And a lot of times I felt that I was left out on my own. And because I wasn't a natural logical thinker, that I did make things harder on myself. I just didn't see the smart way. It was more the trial and error and the square peg in the round hole method of figuring physical things out around me.
Yeah, it's funny when I look at the strength card, another word that comes to mind for me, maybe more so than strength, although it feels like strength to me, is perseverance. For me, this notion of strength, that there's physical strength, but there's this sort of inner strength. And for me, it takes inner strength to persevere through whatever you have to deal with. So I often read the strength card as perseverance, which again, as I'm looking at this Ten of Wands card, is very much perseverance too. This person is really struggling, but they're carrying through, they're pushing ahead with what they're struggling with. So it's funny, the fact that we're doing this today has given me additional thoughts about the Ten of Wands that I never really had before. So it's funny how we can expand on our viewpoints on different cards in the deck. I just want to jump back to chat for a minute.
I agree, Kristen, Louise. There is strength of body and then strength of spirit. And now that my body isn't able to keep up, I try to enrich my spirit. And I think this part of what this tarot journey is for me is mental health and strengthening my spirit.
Yeah, and Jackie calls it courage. Lisa says, I see that too, gathering all of his strength and pushing forward. They're back, they're talking about buying and collecting, I think. Strength for you is your personality, Thomas. Well spoken, and I think that is your strongest quality. That's from Lisa. I'm going backwards here.
Well, thank you for saying that. I don't always recognize that I'm strong.
And then somebody back there said the declutter. Oh, Willie Mel said the declutter card. I love it. Now I'm trying to remember. Was that the Four of Balloons?
Yeah. Four of balloons, four of coins. Usually the miserly figure, sitting.
Right. Yeah.
Sitting with each foot on a coin, and trying to keep the other two as tightly to his chest as he can.
I've never thought of that as a declutter card, but I'll add that to my data bank, my memory bank. I think it's your turn to pull a card.
Can I stack the deck?
Can you stack? Yeah, whatever.
I won't pull a certain card.
Yeah, you can do what you want. This is all about prompting or promoting dialogue. It's 10 after 1, so we've been here over an hour. I just want to see how everybody's doing.
I'm
Maybe.
doing good. I'm really enjoying this, Robin.
Well, I'm also, it's funny how all these weird subconscious connections are popping out of me because I see behind you on the wall the Monopoly board. And I was really tempted to pull out this deck. I don't know if you know about this deck, Life is Like a Board Game. It's the cards are like spaces on the Monopoly board. And visually it's very stylized. It might be hard to read with for some, but they're I don't know. Have you ever seen this card? I mean, this deck.
I think Johnny at Tarot's Apprentice has brought it out for some of his reads.
I mean, for instance, this card on the board, it's win or lose way. It's the Five of Swords, which it tells in the small print. But I love the way that it basically is a good learning card. Like if you know the original image of Five of Swords and you think about that card being described as win or lose, it's sort of a fun or easy way to learn tarot, this deck. Visually, it's kind of funny, but it's not that all that entertaining to look at. I like to see characters and actions in my cards.
Yeah, well, the tarot decks that I am drawn to are more artistically inclined, but I think keeping it simple to the Rider-Waite-Smith keeps it more accessible to somebody who's coming without previous knowledge of the tarot and can learn with that. But one of the things I enjoy is going to museums or live productions whenever possible. I guess I'm very visually stimulated person.
Gerald at Tarot Stash just joined us.
Hi, Gerald.
Marie,
Let's make sure we're off before his 2 p.m. live.
Oh yeah, well, yeah. I don't plan that long, but Maruda says that she's interested in using the Monopoly deck. Wonder if you could actually use it for the game. I'm not sure. I've not laid it out like a grand tableau, like a board game. But okay, sorry. Back to focus here.
Okay. This is my my nemesis card. Whenever I got a professional reading, probably for 10 years in a row, I'd go to the Renaissance Fair and have a reading done there. And I would say he was my stalker card. And so I want to, what is your take on the Hangman? I've really reframed him since starting back up on my study of tarot, where earlier I just felt that it was the card of stagnation. And at the time, I was running as fast as I could and doing as much as I could. And so it became synonymous with stagnation and in motion. So when you get the Hangman or see that imagery, what would be the first keyword that comes up for you?
Well, I think I need to reframe it too and expand my ideas about it. And corresponding to what you said, because when I saw that image, I thought, oh, he's hung up on something. We get hung up on things and sort of trapped by things, not thinking them through, not moving forward. Like, oh my God, so and so is hanging around again, or I just can't move ahead. I'm so hung up on this idea. I can't let it go. I can't change my thinking. So I'm going to add that more into my reading, because for the longest time I didn't understand that card until people referred to it as the perspective card, gaining new perspective by hanging upside down. And that worked for me, but at the same time, the imagery is kind of like, well, there's a lot of better ways, I think, of getting or showing perspective than by being hung by a rope from a tree upside down. So I get the meaning of it, but I think I need to expand my ideas of it. And the notion you said about stagnating goes perfectly with my idea of like being hung up on somebody or something, or that is stagnation. If you get hung up and you can't change, or you can't realize anything else beyond that, your hang-ups, then what do you do? So I guess that's my thoughts on that.
Well, I come from this as mental approach, so I am the sum of my hangups.
Maruda says it's the pause for enlightenment. Well, that makes me think about a soda, the pause that refreshes. Let's see.
Bye, Mel.
Oh, okay. Yeah, she has to leave. One way I see the hangman is as being symbolic of Odin, sacrifice for wisdom, suffering for a higher purpose. That's Kristen Louise. And she's all about the Vikings, the Norse gods, that whole thing. So that makes sense.
And she did state something about suspension a few weeks back, and a Japanese art form of suspension. And I'm glad that all went well for her.
Yeah, that's actually that's another thing that I used to look at that card and think, you're in suspense, or suspend your actions at the moment. Like you're hanging there, you can't move. Maybe it is time to pause and reconsider. Suspend whatever you're doing just temporarily. So that's another way that I look at that card. Lisa says, I see him with his hands and feet are tied. Not much you can do until the rot in the tree can chew you free. I'm crazy, I know, she says.
We're all a little crazy in our own way. And
Yeah.
Kristen Louise, good luck on that tonight.
What's that?
She's got another suspension tonight, Kristen Louise. So good luck on that.
Oh, okay.
So she's choosing to be suspended.
Yeah, making the choice. It's bringing out her inner Odin to be tied up.
If I only have the strength.
I got the Six of Swords, and it's funny. I'm finding as we're going along, I'm not so much using these as prompts for questions as like kind of going with the leaning more heavily into the meaning or reading of the card imagery itself. This one I always enjoyed because it is the idea of moving forward. Boy, I've mentioned that a lot today, the idea of moving forward. That must be in my subconscious somehow at the moment. I need to think about that.
Because I was stuck in suspension for all those years. You've got to prod me along.
Well, a lot of times I look at the tarot deck almost as an entire deck of balance. it feels to me often as a binary message, even though you have, uprights and reversals, and I don't use reversals. But for me, the tarot is most every card, or it seems like most cards are if you bring in the shadow side or whatever, there's this notion of finding balance between two extremes. I see that a lot in the tarot. It's like, um, you should do this to keep from doing this, or bring these two things together and find middle ground so you can maintain some kind of cosmic sense of balance. And when you're balanced, you'll be following the straight path ahead to where you want to get to. I just kind of look at the tarot that way a lot. But this card always was funny to me because of the idea of movement across, from one side to the other side, and the fact that the swords are they're not lying in the boat or resting in it like the passengers. They're like stuck in the bottom of the boat, which always has me wondering about creating holes that, you might not make it to the other side. Your boat might sink on the way there. Like, you have an intention to get there, but you kind of packed your baggage really poorly in that transition across,
Well, I think of those swords as like nails in a tire. You don't want to pull the nail out because then the tire will go flat, and you don't want to pull the swords out because the boat will sink. So they may have caused the hole, but they're preventing a deeper catastrophe.
Well, that's interesting because I always read it as you're moving ahead and leaving baggage behind. But some of the baggage you didn't leave behind, you took it with you.
Right.
And
The
it's not,
emotion baggage, the hurts and the pains are right there with us.
yeah, is that going to create problems for you in the future? Well, it might not if you remember where it came from, what role it played in your past. Then maybe it's okay to take some of that baggage with you as a memory and a lesson and a caution, as opposed to something that you're going to wield that might cause injury, or, maybe even pulling them from the boat. You might cut your hand or whatever. Um, so, yeah, it's kind of giving me different ideas about this card. And a lot of people talk about moving from rough water into calmer waters, which is fine. And that's also in the message that I just saw. But for me, I always focus on those swords like it's precarious baggage. But I didn't think of, like you did, about them both creating holes but plugging holes and keeping the water out. I'm not sure how tight the seals are on that. It's interesting that they're purposely put there in this image. It's like nobody would accidentally store their swords that way in a boat moving across. So they were put there that way with intention. It makes me wonder, looking at the card too, they're crossing to the other side. Might that be a threatening vision to someone on the opposite side, seeing weaponry at the head of the boat coming across the water towards you? I don't know, just something more for me to think about.
Okay, when I see the Six of Swords, I wonder if I am the source of the delivery from to the calmer waters, or am I the person in the boat sheltering with the child? And am I running away from situations and seeking calmer waters? And is it just a temporary patch to remove myself from this situation? Because if I don't fix the problem, it's going to come back again at a later date. So I'm not just a tourist or enjoying the journey. I'm taking a journey, maybe to run away or run to, and maybe it's my cruises. I enjoy the water, but get terribly seasick.
Yeah. I love that we're having this dialogue, even though I feel like we're moving away from the questions as prompts. But it's getting me to discover more about the cards that I hadn't thought about before. The figure in the front of the boat particularly looks very vulnerable. They're kind of hidden and kneeling forward, almost like they want to hide, like they're defenseless. But then the fact that someone on the opposite shore seeing them coming might not even see that because they're hidden behind all these swords. So the swords are almost like a false face. They're almost like threatening to someone they're approaching from the other side to hide the fact that they're really not all about weapons. They're really actually very vulnerable. That's not their reality, being a warrior. It's much into sort of remaining hidden or unnoticed, or having people not know just how weak you are, how vulnerable you are. So I'm gonna be thinking about that.
Well, if we step ahead 2 cards to the 8, where the lady's got the swords as a defensive wall around her, I see that as protective while she's blind and tied up and vulnerable. It's a wall that she put up or was put up to help save her while she's vulnerable, and looses her bindings and sees the light.
Yeah. Never thought of the 6 in relation to the 8, but when I think about those images, it's interesting. In both of them, there's a question of possibly self-imposed activity to keep something from happening. But then I'm thinking about the card that falls in the middle, which is the 7, is the guy taking the sword, sneaking away with the swords, or removing the swords, right?
Well, he's the thief, and I think of him as basically sneaking around in the middle of the night, and he's infiltrated enemy lines, and he's taken away their sting. He didn't make he didn't actually defeat his adversaries. He just stole from them.
I used to always think of him as the sneaky thief, and then other things came in. It makes me wonder now, what you say is he taking away the swords to build up defenses on his side, on his army, or is he a conscientious objector? He just doesn't want war, so he's taking away all the possibilities for anybody to fight. The fact that he's taking the swords doesn't mean he's going to use them. It could just mean the opposition can't use them, or yeah, I don't know.
I like the framing of the conscientious objector, because there are still some pacifists among us.
Well, and somebody else once told me their vision of the card, because you see swords in the background that are left behind. Their reading of it was take only as much as you need and leave something behind. So don't take it all. It's like is it in the 5 of swords? I think somebody has taken all the swords, or they played unfairly or whatever, and I think they're holding a couple swords and the rest are on the ground, and the other people, I believe, are walking away swordless. Whereas in this one, he's left some behind and taken some. So, you know, Nancy's saying, I just want to let you guys know how much I'm enjoying this. Much to ponder. Thank you. You're welcome.
I don't know that I'm shedding a lot of insight, but it is a different insight, I'm sure.
Yeah, you're inspiring me to find more here. And it's funny when I read tarot, sometimes the same images I'll focus in on, but very often my eye will be drawn to some real obscure little symbol in there. It's like, oh, I never noticed that before. Or, gee, I wonder why today in this reading here and now, that's where my focus is and not on the usual message of the card.
And when we refocus on some minutia that we don't usually see or typically see, that can be an epiphany moment for us.
Mm-hmm. Maruda says the swords could be a gift of defense in case the trouble follows them. Cosmic Orphan, hello, says trapped, yearning for escape. I'm not sure which card they're referring to. But
I would say that's the Six of Sword. They were trapped in a situation, or the Eight.
Yeah, the Eight.
In needing to get away from it.
Yeah.
I'm looking for the Five of Swords in the Stolar Tarot because that has a different depiction, it's in a line with the swords left behind.
In reference to the image in this card of the people traveling across in the boat with the swords, do you have anything in your life in particular that you relate to that image other than enjoying going on cruises?
Well, swords do represent a lot of emotional upheaval to me because when I thought I had it all figured out, then a tower moment would come along and show me the folly of my thoughts. And then back to the psychiatrist I need to go, and another round of counseling and unearthing. And anybody who comes to tarot with that perspective, maybe is not doing themselves a service, because we all need help, and professional help is generally needed instead of an armchair entertainer.
Mm-hmm. I'm curious because you said swords and emotions, and I'm wondering if you relate to swords differently than you do cups, which are generally the emotions. Because if I have to think about an aspect of emotions with the swords, it seems to me this idea of injury through thought and communication, because for me, swords are all about thinking and speaking. So it's like, okay, if I think emotionally about the idea of thinking and speaking, well, that pulls me back to the Three of Swords, which a lot of us focus on the heart or call it heart, because it's very prominent. We think more about the heart than we do about the swords. But when you think and remind yourself that swords are thought and speech, then it's like those are things that can injure your feelings. You need to either think about what you're thinking and what you're saying and the damage that that might be causing to your heart, your emotions, or be aware that that's a possibility. It's something there that other people may be harming you, or your thoughts and memories about what has done you wrong is a very emotional thing. Uh, it's funny to me when I think about thoughts and speech with swords, because my first impression of swords is it's an offensive weapon. It's meant to like cut and kill, and that's a very emotional kind of thing. But I just wondered how you were led to emotions when you think of swords.
Um, yeah, I framed a lot of things in the pain of the emotions. So, like you said, the three of hearts, um, the heartache, the anguish, the loss, um, and curiously, the body can manifest thoughts. So if you think something negatively, it can become an outward manifestation on your physical body and being. Like I early on in my life and until I reached about 40, I was a very big person. I was like 305 pounds, and so I was using the weight as a safety. I wanted to be small and introverted and not noticed, but then I was large and noticed, and that took a physical toll on my body, um, with the outward manifestation of the weight. And uh, I found that there was a situation where in my mental self-talk, the tape got stuck on that person is making me tear my hair out. Well, not this baldness. This is hereditary baldness, but when I was going through a very stressful time and that person was making me tear my hair out, I was losing quarter size patches of hair around my head. I looked like an inverse leopard. So you really have to be careful what you say to yourself in your mind, because the body can manifest self harm.
Mhm.
So the five of spoons was the five of swords that I wanted to show you. There we go. And it looks like Dougie here eating his ice cream with the spoons has played an unfair game with his mates, and he's got all the ice cream and not willing to share with anybody else. And their spoons are left on the ground, and they're walking away in defeat. Um, so this has a little bit different take on the five of swords.
Yeah, I think it's interesting in that deck that the swords are spoons, which don't seem to me like something threatening at all. I mean, it's sort of the equivalent of a butter knife. A
Yeah, well,
spoon.
until you see the 10 of spoons and the lady on the floor in the kitchen with her innards taken out by all those spoons.
Oh dear. Yeah, because a spoon seems to me like it's a comfort in a way. And I guess it's a comfort because it's something we use to eat with. It's not a way of rendering our steak, with a knife, but it's gathering up nourishment to consume. That's going to make me think about the nature of swords, how I can translate that works for me.
Um, if you have minimal silverware, what do you use up first, spoons or forks? or do you do the smart thing and take care of your dishes as you use them, and you always have?
Well, I do that, but you've got me thinking about, well, if I'm out somewhere and I only had choice of one item, I probably would choose a spork, which is the combo of a spoon and a fork. And I don't often have the need for a knife to cut things up because most of the things I eat are in bite-sized pieces. So I don't usually need. I might need it to, like, say, spread peanut butter or something on a piece of bread, but that's I suppose I could maybe do that with the back of a spoon.
Been known to do that, yes.
I just noticed Terry at Holding Your Space has come into the chat, and welcome. My forks always go missing like socks, she says.
Well, I used to buy. I used to go to the thrift stores and buy um, one-off forks, um, buy 50 at a time, and take them to work. And I quit doing that after I bought 50 of them, and in less than a month, every single fork had disappeared from the break room at work.
Mm.
Because I found out that, you know, people were taking them home because they were picking up the swords,
Mm.
or uh, people were thoughtless and throwing them away with their paper plate
Yeah.
into the trash, or hoarding them at their desk, um, you know, and not wanting to go back and wash them properly, you know, use plastic cutlery, but, you know, they've got a drawer full of forks. So when 50 of them disappeared in 1 month's time, I quit buying forks for the office break room.
Yeah.
You know, because if there's only 15 people in the entire office, you know, that makes no sense.
Yeah. I, over my life, have developed funny habits with my cutlery. I mean, I came with a family that took mom for granted and just, always reached for a fresh, clean, you know, utensil or plate, dish or whatever, and then just dumped them in the sink for her to wash. And then when I moved away on my own, I had roommates, and they were forever putting off till later to do the dishes until our communal sink was filled with dirty dishes that nobody wanted to clean. And it's like, oh, let it be so and so's turn, or you do it, or I don't want to. And I thought, I don't want to do this. It's like nothing worse for me than a sink so full of dirty dishes that there's nowhere to begin. You can't even get the water, your hands in there to deal with it. So I developed this own sort of segregationist kind of habit of limiting my own tools to, one spoon, one fork, one knife, one mug. And then I ended up not even using plates. Most of my stuff, I got one of these big Pyrex measuring cups, quart size, with a handle on it. And it's like a big bowl with a handle, and I eat out of that, which sort of looks ridiculous, but works perfectly well for me. And I always wash them right after eating immediately. I maybe, feeling satiated from food and just not want to move, but I know that if I leave them longer, they'll be harder to wash because the food will be caked on, dried on, and I'll have to scrape and struggle with it or soak them. So for, I don't know, last 50 years, I guess, I've been doing this kind of. I have, plenty of plates and dishes and silverware, but I tend to just use the same one over and over, clean and reuse, clean and reuse.
Well, living alone helps alleviate a lot of frustration like that. I have an over the road trucker roommate
Uh-huh.
that in the 3 days that he's in Houston, between his 3 weeks on, um, he can turn the entire apartment upside down and leave such a mess that I have to go at it in 10-minute intervals.
Mhm.
And then it takes me 3 weeks to get it all finished, and just in time for him to come home for another 3 days and do it all over again.
Well, about the same time I had roommates and the sink dish situation, we also had the food consumption situation where I bought ice cream for myself in the freezer that disappeared into the mouths of roommates. It's one thing to intentionally share your stuff with other people, but another when they just go ahead and they like reach for it. Yeah, there you go. And
You were buying Doug's ice cream.
I ended up there was nothing I could do with the ice cream or the things that needed to be refrigerated other than putting labels on it or messages, which didn't always work either. But the dry goods kind of stuff, like snacks and things like cookies and crackers and, stuff like that, I tended to start hoarding in my bedroom. I did have my own room. And so it's like, if I bought these for me and I want them to remain for me, I need to protect them and put them out of temptation's reach of the other people. They didn't come into my room and steal from me, but if it was in the kitchen on the shelf or in the refrigerator, it apparently was fair game. So,
Jessry, it it gives me a task to accomplish, and I eventually get it done, and I feel a sense of accomplishment, and so I get something from it too, because half the rent's paid, so I deal with the mess.
Nancy says it's easier and motivating to clean up your own mess. You tend to be carefuler. Yeah, more careful.
Well, shall we think about winding this up? So,
Yeah, I'm wondering if that's enough, or if we should do maybe maybe we each pull one card in terms of sort of a reading for the collective.
collective.
I don't
Okay.
usually do that, and people do it a lot, but let's see what happens. I'd like to see how our cards interact in terms of that, and you can do a separate reading as well. Hmm. That's funny. All my cards I'm pulling today have bearing on what we're doing and talking about in a oblique way, but definitely there. So you got a card? Oh, you froze on me. Huh. I don't know if Thomas can find his way back in or not. It looks like he's frozen, and that may be a time to signal the ending. Well, I'm just going to share this last card then. It's the Hierophant. And I think in here we have three figures. We have one in a teaching position and the others in learning position. But I think those roles can easily or readily be switched. I'm constantly both teaching and learning from other people. You're kind of trying to come back. There you are. You froze up on me.
Okay. Yeah, I pulled Justice, and uh, so for a reading for the collective, um, are we personally we see justice, but with the political situation in America, are we finally going to see justice? Is justice going to be blind and impartial, or um, whoever's hired the best lawyer wins? So maybe we need to back things up with a little more resources to make sure the scales of justice tip true to what the concept is actually supposed to mean.
Yeah. And Jackie says you've both been teaching and learning from each other. When you were off, I don't know if you heard me, but I think I pulled the Hierophant, and I'm going to bring this back a little more personal. That the Hierophant and the Justice card both seem to me like cards in positions of authority. And when I pulled my card, I said, well, the Hierophant there's three people on this card. There's a teacher, and there are those being taught. But in life, as in this dialogue, hopefully I'm teaching others and others are teaching me. I've learned things from you today. I've learned things from people in the chat, and this sort of three-way dialogue or whatever you have has me weighing things out like the justice figure, and also teaching and being taught. So I'd say as a card for the collective in days ahead or weeks ahead, think about things like that, about things that you may learn from, things that you may pass along and teach others, and trying to remain equitable in your dealings with yourself and with other people. Did you freeze on me again? Oh, no.
Well, I'm being contemplative, but there okay. I go. There I'm moving. I've got like a more than a 7-second lag from where I can see on the computer to where I'm actually seeing us both together on the telephone. Yeah, I've really enjoyed this, Robin, and you've taught me so much, and the people in your comment section seem to be people that I already know, from other shows that we both must watch, and I'm learning from them, and I would love to do it again if you think there would be any value of that.
Sure. Yeah, we'll do that. I'll schedule it at some point. I'm slowly making my way through and trying to open up to the idea of meeting with people I haven't met before and don't know yet. So I want to kind of do some more of these and invite more people in. And anybody in the chat who has a channel and might like to do something like this, get in touch with me and help me sort it out. But yes, I was thrilled to be able to finally meet Tom today and share some time and some provoking thoughts it's great. I love it. Not only getting to know somebody, but to come away with some things to think more about regarding cards.
Well, thank you for allowing us newbies to get some mentorship, because you're coming up on your 4th anniversary, and you have the technology. I'm still somewhat trying to figure things out. When Jane had me for the first thing, I was dropped my signal on the telephone, and because I hadn't charged up, I thought I could get on with the computer. But your tutelage is appreciated, and I've gotten so much out of this discussion.
Well,
And
thank you. I thank you. Freudian slip. I thank you. It's funny. I not too long ago had a bit of an epiphany about the Hierophant because I always disliked that card. It just sort of smacked of organized religion. But when I got to thinking more about it, I realized that everybody that has a tarot channel is a Hierophant. What I mean by that is they take the knowledge gathered by the high priestess and they're communicators communicating to an audience. So we take that hidden knowledge or that knowledge that we uncover, maybe it's unspoken or hadn't thought much about it, and we find a way to translate it or communicate it to others. That means all of us are Hierophants. It doesn't mean somebody in power or somebody in this lofty position or something, but we all teach and learn from each other. And I think you froze again, unless you're really good at posing by holding very still. So anyway, I'm going to thank you for joining me today, Thomas, and thank everybody in the chat. And I'm going to let you all go. And well, here he comes back in just in time to unfreeze and join me in saying thanks for being here and goodbye, everyone.
thank you, everyone. Thanks for the chat.